selfish heart. A heart that is so selfish that only thinks of grabbing for themselves alone. So ask your neighbor today, do you have a selfish heart? There are many people that their hearts are so selfish, all they think about is themselves alone. And when you have a heart so selfish that all you think about is yourself, you cannot do exceedingly well because you are so concerned about yourself that you don't think of others. And these are the cycles of wickedness, the ingredients. Because for you to be wicked to another person, you definitely have lost a sense of empathy to be able to think of how they will feel at the effect of your wickedness. For you, it's just all about yourself. When you do things that are untoward, you forget the effect it has on other people. So for you, as long as you and your family is happy, other families should go and die. But you see, what the cycle of wickedness forgets that if other families should go and die and your family is happy, you can never have progress. So it's about doing your best possible to lift others and providing opportunities for others. But there are many people who only think of themselves alone and how it can only be within their family. So you see people that are so wicked that traditional titles in their villages and things like that, they will make it for their family alone. They will do everything, they will manipulate, and it's going to be about them alone. For them, in their dictionary, it's not about doing for others. So somebody that doesn't think of how to do for others can easily be very wicked. So there's an innate selfishness. And even when they do for others, it's because they want something in return. So do not mistake the fact that they also do for others. When they do for others, it's because they want something in return. And what they want to get in return most of the time is normally bigger than what they did for you. So let us be careful. And let us start to watch it. Do you have a wicked pattern, a wicked streak in your life? There are some of you that you don't ever want to see any other person prosper. You think life should be about you alone. But the truth is, it is not you that makes yourself exceeding. It is the capacity of God in you that makes your life exceeding. So you will do anything to be able to get your way. You will hurt people. You will kill for politics just because of your selfish ambition. And I keep looking. What is this thing people kill themselves for about politics? Nigeria is a very poor country. Poor country. Budget 30 billion. If you had a bigger mindset, why don't you think of creating an abundance of wealth in industry rather than killing another person because you want to consistently oversee a budget of 30 billion every year for the next probably 8 years and the influence you want to dispense, when you can make the pie bigger? So people always think of their own selfish interest and they want everything to come down if they don't get their way, rather than say, okay, let us promote it for other persons to be able to enjoy. You forget the tree you are enjoying today, somebody built it. And there is nothing in this life that you will take away. So you see, the capacity for you to understand that there is nothing in this life that you take away is the first awareness as regards what you'll become in life. Because all of you think, oh, I'm in this life to keep for myself alone. The truth is, what do you own? You don't own anything. You cannot be anything without when the creator of life gives you the capacity to be anything. You don't even own your life. And that's why, please, I beg you, do not take it for any reason. So it's a cycle of wickedness. And when you are selfish, you are so into yourself. And a lot more people are becoming so much into themselves. And that's why they can't share. They can't reach out. Other people have never benefited from them. They can't think and sit down of how to bless other people. Another part of the cycle of wickedness is the proliferation of evil thoughts towards another person. Do you think evil? Have you ever sat down and orchestrated evil? Please call me up. You have a problem. Because if all you do every time is to sit down and orchestrate evil towards everybody, then it's a cycle of thought processes that lead to eternal wickedness, and it doesn't make society grow. So a lot of evil thoughts are going around. And we have it pervasive in this country. A lot of evil thoughts in the name of, oh, is in my political party, in the name of the political party. People can disagree along political lines, but you must not think evil towards the other person. Can you imagine how mad you are? You took a life God created because of your own ambition. A human being, you ordered them to go kill a human being because of your own ambition. Then you are mad. You have lost it. And you sit pretty every time. Or somebody sent you to go kill. So if somebody can send you to go kill for them, then who are you as God's creation? You must always understand that God is the one that daily loads us with benefits. Your sum total of what you will be in life is God. And if He doesn't give you the capacity to do it, you will not do it. See, God can easily kill you in your sleep and nothing will happen. For the fact that He made you wake up every morning is not a right. It's for you to remember that He has an assignment for you on earth. And one of our greatest assignments to be able to help impact our generation for positivity. So some people will argue, how about if I kill people because I have a cause? Really? You take lives because you have a cause? And they will say, how about in war? Really? Are they justifications for life taking? Can we look for better ways to be able to solve the problem in the first place? And you see, it's this cycle of wickedness that pervades the mentality of our leaders on the African continent. These are the same leaders that complain that colonialism hurt us so much. After they fought for independence, what happened? They looked for ways to now fleece the same people that they said they were rescuing from the colonialists. So they went to partner with the colonialists. But they forget that the West are longer colonialists than you. So they've perfected the art. I mean, in South Africa, they perfected Bantustan, how to oppress people. So the West will now send you a dummy, thinking they're going to help you. But once you fall into their trap, they now use you to colonize your people. That's exactly what's happening on the African continent. So it's a colonialism. But the colonialism today is being aided by the selfishness of most of the leaders across the continent. And that's what we call a cycle of wickedness. That's what we call a cycle of wickedness. But everything goes back to the initial mindset of an individual. And that's why I keep asking you the question, where is your heart? Where is your heart as a person? As an individual, where is your heart? Is your heart in the things of righteousness and upholding societal goodness, or your heart is in things of destruction? Because if your heart is not in things of righteousness and upholding societal goodness, then you start to fall into that long cycle of wickedness. And a lot of you are in that cycle. It might not only be the national life, it might be you as a human being. You never want your neighbor's children to be better. You want everybody to come and beg from you. Is that life? If I had a magic wand, one thing I would do is I would just say abracadabra, let poverty end. Because you think it's an easy thing for people to come and go cap and out begging? No. But there are some people, because you want them to feel good, you feel good when people come to beg you and you feel you are their God. You are nobody's God. I am nobody's God. I can never be anybody's God. So these are the cycles of wickedness we keep seeing. So that's why I ask, where is your heart as a person? Where is your heart as an individual? What is the capacity of your heart? Does your heart speak goodness unto generations yet unborn, or your heart speaks evil and chaos? And many of you, your heart speaks evil. If your heart speaks evil, it speaks in the cycle of wickedness. Because the cycle of wickedness does not see success and prosperity for anyone. It sees destruction. Like I was saying at a forum yesterday, that the cycle of wickedness always thinks about pulling down. For you as a woman, does your heart speak good or wickedness towards your husband? For you, you think, oh, I'm a baby girl for life. Somebody must spend money on me. That's a what mindset. So you never think of how to give unto that man that is struggling. How to be a blessing unto him. I always think of how to surprise people with gifts. Because the way my heart is wired. One of the things that give me the greatest joy is when I see people happy when I serve them. Nothing gives me that joy. Nothing gives me that joy. So, truth has to be told. We need to be able to build that capacity for kindness. So, the question is, where is your heart? Where is your heart? Because if your heart is not in the right place, it will be in the wrong place for evil. When your heart is in the wrong place for evil, it destroys society. Because there's a contentious force in your head every time of evil and good. Evil wants to dominate, but also the good wants to dominate. And if evil wins good, you have societal destruction. And that's the problem you have in society, where a lot of evil wins good. I know we're not sort of a rich country. You know why? Because we have a very low mindset that does not want progress and development. So we pull people that are trying to make development happen down. We attack people that try to reach out and help. We read sinister motives in things they do. But when your heart is corrupted, you can never be a happy person. Because joy is internal. And the question is, where is your heart? What gives you fulfillment? Is it the growth and development of people? As a leader, how do you feel when you see pictures of bad road? It's not the time for you to respond to propaganda and say my political adversaries are against me. The question is that road bad? If it's bad, can you fix it? That should be your priority. There's a popular saying, a man sees a snake, a woman kills it. As long as the snake is dead. So your priority should be about the good you can do for humanity. Not, oh, everybody's against you and all of that. No. So the question is, where is your heart? You can't say you want to lead people, but also you want to break people. You can't say you want to lead people, but also you want to break people. You want to lead people, but you want to trample on people. See, there's a place where you have to be firm as a leader. But the question you should constantly ask yourself, where is your heart? Is it in the best interest? I know there are a lot of interests. I know it's not easy for a lot of leaders. On this show, I have talked about the followership too.
That's why I'm recalibrating the heart, because it is the heart that will lead to prosperity of the leaders, because a lot of the leaders are influenced by the followers. So when you have a lot of leaders influenced by the followers, but if the followers are constantly asking about money every time, then society can never move forward. But why are they asking about this pervasive poverty? How do you solve the problem of pervasive poverty? The question is, can you liberate the people with opportunities? The greatness of a country is dependent on the opportunities it can create for those that have none. What is poverty? Poverty means passing over opportunities regularly. The reason why Black Africa is poor, because it constantly misses opportunities of growth and development. But when there's a cycle of wickedness, it can never have opportunities for growth and development. When there's a cycle of wickedness, Black Africa can never have opportunity for growth and development. And that's why, after this session, I'm going to be playing a 40-minute series on why Africa is poor, just to be able to also open your mindset. And for all of you people, that because you're also part of the cycle of wickedness about what you can gain, so you see evil politicians and you support them, and it's wrong, because your mindset is not set right. I know for all of you is what you can eat, but you forget that there is nothing you eat that doesn't end in this world, apart from the grace of God. Because all that get you to have a lot long. So you say because of what you eat, you know that this is bad, and you condone it in society. And society starts to falter. God will ask you, because you have the capacity to change things. So these are the things you should understand. And you see, this is how the cycle of wickedness keeps increasing. You cannot say you did not know that this was not good, but you followed it because you had gains. So when you now see the effect of what you did, you start to complain. Complain for what? But you condoned the evil. You supported the evil. You made the evil a biggest factor in your thought process. You know the person you are shouting Baba care for has a streak of evil, but because of your own selfish interest. And if your selfish interest will not make you speak the truth, why don't you tell them to leave you alone? See, if one man forsakes you because you speak the truth, other people will pick you up, because one man can never be your God. One man can never be your God. So your capacity to understand that one man is not your God is what makes you exceedingly different. So I want you to check yourself, because you might be wrecking yourself. I've started this series. I'll take a couple of calls. I'll take a couple of calls soon. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. I'll take 3-4 calls, and we'll get ready for that insightful, packed message on why Africa is poor. It's like a docu-series that's going to open your eyes to a lot. So you can call from every part of the world. Lovers, great people joining us, impact people of this family on VOP. You can call us up, and we'll take all your calls and your messages. 0818-099-1991. 1991. The cycle of wickedness has to stop. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. Hello. Hello. Oh, I have too much calls. Hello, how are you? Oh, we have too much calls jamming in. 0818-099-1991. Hello, how are you? Hello?
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Rufai Oseni.
Morning, bless you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Dr. Navd Certification, Manjem from Atletica.
Hey, Manjem, it's been a while. Manjem, we had an outreach in Dodogulu yesterday at the health outreach center, at the Oseni Center, where we catered with drugs and everything for over 200 people. Tell me about your outreach, because we keep supporting you here. Tell me about the outreach you're doing in the north, because I tell people that I also have tentacles through great people like you in the north. Tell me about it. And if you want to support Manjem, his number is 0906-683-3627. 0906-683-3627. Talk to me, my brother. God bless you.
Yeah, good morning. Yesterday I saw, because I was following you on the Facebook, I was so glad when you opened the health center at Dodogolu. I talked about it. I was so happy seeing the people coming up. You know, I was so glad that to God be the glory, you were able to fulfill this purpose. I am so happy about it. More grace upon your life, Mr. Rufai. You are really doing well.
God be blessed, my brother.
Yes, my people, last week, Narayan Foundation, they lost some ophthalmology partner with us to give free eyeglasses to the people.
Oh, that's good.
Now, as I'm speaking to you now, they are in Belgium State now.
Okay.
So, thank God that you have opened your center. That's why I called you. Because by the month of, let's say August, so I will discuss with you. I don't know when it's convenient for you so that we can discuss one-on-one. I want to partner to come and give free eyeglasses to your people.
Please. My brother, you have my number, the WhatsApp. Just send me that message. When you are ready, okay, you'll come to the village of Dogolu. We'll give eyeglasses to people. We'll do outreach. We bless people. And thank you for all the great work you're doing in Nasarawa. And if you want to support him and partner with this great man, Nasarawa Bauchi Manjem Pharmaceutical, 0906-683-3627. And I also want to say great thank you to my friend too, Chidi Okoro with DM Pharmacy. We also got a lot of multivitamin drugs for children yesterday. I also bought drugs myself. My brother, this thing about drugs, when I use my own hard-earned money to buy drugs, now I know the drugs don't cost to. Drugs is so expensive. Jesus Christ.
Yesterday when I was watching opening the place, people were turning up. This is what I want to do. And I was so happy that I'm coming to the, what I'm trying to let you know this is that I've not been able to focus to the southwest. So because of you now, we are looking to the southwest. So we are going to start from your health center.
Please, my center is there. My center is there to partner. It's our center. All right. And we'll do a lot together. These are the kind of things I keep praying for God. And please, this center, this Oseni Center, I want one in the FCT. So if you have a place, and I'm saying this out loud, I'm just exercising my faith. If you have a house you want to give me, that will be a center where we use to do outreach in Abuja. Please indicate. I'm just saying it to the air. I'm exercising my faith. I know what God can do because I want to do a lot of work, advocacy and work around. So we use it as a hub where people can come and take these things, and we partner. I know VOP is already in Abuja, so VOP is part of me everywhere I go. We have VOP 96.1 in Abuja, so we can use that platform to do a lot of good work for people. Thank you so much, my brother.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rufai. It seems to be you and I, we are working towards the same vision, and I'm so glad to have get this because it's my project that we should have. So Oseni Center, by the grace of God, we are going to have it. So I will work on that to get the place for you because myself, my partner, we get a key hospital.
Bless you so much.
Let us have our own. It's going to be Oseni Center, Abuja. So I will get the place, then I will let you know the price.
Bless
so we have that so that people in Nasarawa and the other states within FCT can be coming around.
Yeah, so that we have a place there,
Yeah,
Bless you so much. I really appreciate it.
I will get before the week runs out. So
thank you so much. I never get the money now. They call on our partners to make them bless us. So I never get the money now.
That is the way you might go, but you know that really missionaries they really try. But God is training you. Another one that you begin to reward.
Thank you so much. Bless you so much. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good morning, sir.
Bless you, my sister. How's it going?
I bless God.
Yeah.
This is Wickedness.
Hey, bless you, my sister. How's it going? Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I want to appreciate you for the topic. I heard what you said concerning drugs. Drugs are very expensive. Many of us, we can't even provide money for the chocolate of the drug. I went to make inquiry concerning my test that I'm about to take. Even though somebody wants to help me, let them know where to start. They told me that general body test is 22,500 naira. Minusing the eye code because it was God care hospital. Because that hospital is close to me at local here. So they are going to direct me to a place that I'll go and run the eye test, which they don't know how much it will take. The general body test is liver something functioning and the urine something and blood and another thing. That one only is 22,500. So I don't really know. I can't even afford money for test.
Let me call your number. Your number is it 0906-537-6478? 0906-537-6478. All right. Thank you so much for that. We've called your number. We just hope for the best. It's going to be well. 0818-099-1991. A lot of great words coming out. Impactful. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good morning, Mr.
Great to have you, yeah.
Yeah, my name is Music. I just want to speak about Asia's wickedness that they have
Yeah.
So, I've been out of Nigeria for about 4.5 years, and I recently just got back. And I stayed in Town for reference purpose. And the way we left this country years ago is nothing to write home about the present state of the country.
In fact, years ago was a lot better than now.
It was, yeah, definitely. I will narrow this down to Town. Rufai, I just don't know how I stumbled. I'm preparing to go to church, so I just decided to step out. I don't know how I stumbled on this show. So I started hearing, as I heard your voice, I decided to stick and just listen to what you had to say. I didn't know it was this long. I drove out, just for no reason. I just drove out to kill time before I come back and get ready for work. And I must tell you that the heart of these men that did us is so evil. They are so wicked. And they don't know that inadvertently they are even being wicked to themselves.
Yes.
As I talk to you, I have driven around Festa. I'm driving, I'm on wheels now, but I've parked somewhere so I can make this call. There is no single road in Festa Town that you can drive for 1 whole minute without meeting a death trap pothole. The whole of Festa Town, there is no area, no road you can drive for 1 minute without meeting death trap potholes. I just drove past the local government secretariat in 41 Road. They have those kind of major potholes in front of the secretariat. The secretariat gate, they have a pothole there. Now, how can you as a human being be so shameless? I heard these people collect nothing less than 100 million allocation every month. These people are so wicked. In fact, when we talk, it's like we just want to call them out for no reason. But I must tell you, these people are very, very, extremely wicked. Nigerian politicians are the most evil set of human beings on earth.
It is well, and that's why we are using this message, we'll keep talking to change the mindset.
I hope
We'll keep talking.
The chairman of the local government, Valentine, gets this message.
We'll keep talking to
They are
change
very wicked. They are extremely wicked.
We'll keep talking to change my brother. Let me take other calls, huh? Bless you. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good morning, Dr. Rufai.
Morning, great to have you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Uche and I'm calling from Festac.
Great to have you. Uche in Festac. Talk to me.
Yes, so I want to first of all say I appreciate you for the work you are doing. I was so impressed to hear that eventually your free medical outreach took place yesterday at the Dugolu. I'm so excited about that.
Bless God.
You, sir.
Bless God.
Okay, so in the month of March, I was on VOP 90.3 FM. Yeah, where I talked about my herbal remedy for prostate cancer. Yeah, on your radio station. That was in March. So I received, I turned out the winner of the third prize because it was a competition, the 3X startup prize. I don't know if you are aware of it.
No, I wasn't aware of it. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, so yeah. I won the third place in that competition. Now, I talked about my herbal remedy for prostate cancer. So, somebody in the UK saw my video on YouTube, and she sponsored the treatment of a man, you know, who lives at Oshobo for treating him of a prostate cancer. And so I'll tell you that if it pleases you, I can send you the results of that treatment. In 2 weeks, you know, his PSA level dropped by 66.7%.
Okay, you know what you're going to do for me is this. What you're going to do for me is this. Because I know a lot of people might be sorry. Prostate cancer is a big deal, all right? And I know everything about PSA levels. So I mean, trust me. But I want you also to do it in partnership with a couple of doctors. So, you know, for these outreaches and things like that, you know, if you can do it with a partnership with a couple of doctors. And have you gotten Navd certification and proof of concept for that remedy? For commercialization?
I haven't done that. For the Navd, I haven't done that yet.
Okay, so how quickly can you do that and all of that? You know, because of the safety and the safeguarding of health and things like that. And, you know, if you can put a proof of concept out there, why not? And if not, you know, and let's see how we can, because these are things that we can use to promote our own country. And if you've made this invention, so just go ahead, do the Navd certification and all of that.
Let me interrupt you. There's a man who called me from the US. He called me from the US and he said he has prostate issues and his PSA is really bad. And he said that that the drugs that he's using, it's affecting his libido and also destroying his immune system. And I said, sir, you need to find a way to fly into Lagos so I can treat you. You know, so right now he's working on getting a leave so that he can fly.
Okay, so you go do all the certification from NAVD. Let the government approve that this drug works and everything. Then let's see what we can do from that. Let's follow the laws of the land. Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for your invention. God bless you. God bless you so much. Yeah. All right, we're lifting a lot of people. We're doing great things for God. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099. Oh, yeah, this number has been trying to call. Bless you. Hello, how are you? Where are you calling from?
My name is Alex. I'm from Sweden.
Yeah, I can see the number plus 46 in Sweden. Great to have you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your good work. I appreciate it so much.
God be praised.
I want to let you know one thing. You know, I may not be that old, but I'm going to know that the evil that has engulfed Africa, Black Africa, is as a result of the failure of the family system. That is my own observation.
Yeah, which is a strong point. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
They are from family, right? And you know that the family is a first place of
no, socialization. I mean, that's a strong point. I'm not contesting with you. Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah.
So, since our family system fails, we are producing, I don't know how to describe people we are producing. No human heart anymore. People will be trying to cross over the person and because, not what we used to over their experience in the world, you know. We always have our people, the other person's back in the old days. But these days, wickedness has engulfed everywhere. People are wicked, you know. That's why we are seeing politicians behaving the way they are behaving. So I believe that we can go back we build our family system, right?
Very good point.
I can't take it from that. And coming to the house, people are complaining. I don't like lamenting. What I've been doing, I would like to share my experience with being house. You know, how I help my own people is that there is a existing institution like this NHIS, existing in Nigeria, and a lot of good hospital, you know, are linked to that. So what you could do as a human being, I'm not referring to you for people that have to help. Pick one or two persons, maybe tell them there, then map out some form, keep get invest in the they will go to that physical hospital using the NHS this thing. And from that your form, you can remain 10% they're supposed to pay. If you don't have it, you can pay from there, you know, to make it easy.
That's another good one, another health insurance option. You know, models differ. That's one out of the model.
Yeah, it's working in Nigeria. I'm telling you what's happening. Yeah. I'm doing it. I think people are 20 every year. I even tell them which NHS, right? Then I put some money aside for if they fall sick, they go to the hospital, they only need to pay 10%, right? At the end of the day, if they cannot even pay that 10% that they are charging hospital, right? I can actually pay for them. Do you understand?
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you, my brother. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. And that's the thing we're saying. We can use many models, you know, to be able to arrive at one solution to the problem. I'll take one or two more calls. I will start to wrap things up today. It's been a great session. Thank you guys so much. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for your insights and the things you have joined us in doing that. Thank you. Thank you all so much. 0818 099 1991 0818 099 1991 0818-099-1991. And after this session, we're going to be playing a message on why Africa is poor, you know, and it's going to be a very, very enlightening session. So after this session, you might not see the streams again across all Rufai Oseni's network on YouTube, on Instagram, and all of that, and on Twitter, but you'll definitely see it on the YouTube page of VOP 90.3 FM. Hello, how are you? Hello.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Section. I'm calling from Iba.
From Iba. If you get flu, you get Qatar.
No.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, my brother. Talk to me.
It's about one of my old friends. That's I had a job then, so I've been assisting him because he has an eye issue. So, but since I lost my job, I could not be able to assist him anymore. But the eye is getting worse. I don't know if there's any way, because I've been trying to reach you, I've been listening to your program. If there's any way that you can be
Okay, currently we don't have anything on ground as regards eye, but I'd like to just announce, if you have anybody that can help take up cases of eye issue and things like that, please just let us know so that I'll be able to help them take up this case. Thank you so much. So we'll just call for it. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good morning, sir.
Bless you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Stanley Ali. I'm calling you from Belgium.
Good to have you from Belgium.
Yeah, from Belgium.
Yeah.
I think I've contacted you several times.
Okay.
And I was just listening to your program now, so I just let me contribute.
Bless you so much, my brother. Talk to us.
Yeah, and the guy that sent you a message about the tube that was injected into my body, which they refused to remove.
Yes, I amplified that message. I mean, I don't know how that thing finally went. I amplify. You know, there are many cases we get and we do our best, but you know, some comes out fine, some doesn't come out fine.
Yeah, it happened. I have traveled all over the world to look for solution, and thank God that I was able to do some MRI examinations, which proved that I have these tubes in my hip and my left shoulder. I have the MRI images and proofs to that. So I have gone to court here in Belgium, but the court, they don't want to listen to it and all that. So, but still, I'm still fighting it.
Okay, still keep fighting, and we'll also see how we can amplify, you know, to human rights communities the world all over, you know, and see how it pans out. But so sorry about what you're going through. It's going to be well. But please keep in touch. Yeah. Keep in touch, huh? Bless you so much.
Okay, sir.
Thanks.
So with this number, okay.
Yeah. So you can send messages to this number, but keep it. I remember I amplified that case when you released the data.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for doing that.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy because I've already contacted so many media houses, even in Nigeria and other places, and they refuse to publish it or to do what you did for me. So I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much. We'll keep pushing, my brother. Bless you. Thanks.
Okay. Then I'll send some of the.
Oh, we lost that. Let's see if we can smuggle in one more call quickly. Just take one more call quickly before we start to wrap things up. One more call quickly. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. All right, so 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. Okay. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Bless you. How are you? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning. I appreciate your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Navd.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Lagos.
Good to have you, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you for changing the mindset of Nigerians.
God be praised, sir.
Please, I'd like to pass an information to you.
Okay.
There was this man is a rewire work. He did good people and raw people. Yes, the name is Muri. Last week I asked him to do something in my car. He vandalized the whole car. And when he reporting out, it's like he doesn't pick his horn. He goes with my battery and my brake balls. Please, help me. His number is still going. His name is Muri Quadri.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll help you back in. Thank you so much. Muri Quadri, please, what you're doing is wrong. Do not hurt people. Do not cause people pain. You see, a lot of people don't know the implications of the things they do. Do not cause people pain in this life. Don't hurt people. Don't destroy people. Don't make them feel sad. Do your best for them. My motto has always been, if you can't make their lives better, don't make it worse off. A lot of you don't understand the impact of some of the things you do on the lives of people. You know, you don't get it. And may God open your eyes to get it. Because if you got it, you will not do it. You know, you cause people pain, you cause people hurt. It's not fair. I beg you. It's not fair. Don't do it. It's not fair. It's not fair. Please. You might say, oh, it's just a case with his rewire. I mean, you should go and say, but why should the rewire treat him like that in the first place? These things are not fair. I beg you. Let's not do it. Let's not do evil to one another. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Bless you so much. What's your name?
Good morning, sir.
Okay, what's your name, sir?
Okay, my name is Chris Wani. I'm calling from Abuja.
Okay, great to have you, Chris Wani. Talk to me.
Yeah. Okay, just to ask you, I'm of your fans. I'm very passionate about your beliefs, especially as they have to do with our society. You know, the growth and changes that could happen in the society, which have to do with the human character development. That's been the area of my work. I had this book I wrote long ago. I think I tried sending you a message around it. A New Nigeria is Possible. That's the title of my book. And it's geared towards changing the attitude of people and all of that. I look forward to having an opportunity to share my vision with you. And if you permit me, it may not be on this program. I really want to share some things with you, at least verifiable things we've been doing around that, and also other works that we have. Because when we talk about the development of Africa or our society, we actually need to create that by ourselves. What we want that will make it work for us. We can't keep depending on what other people are doing for us. So to create a new society, then we have to develop what we think is suitable for us and what we can do by ourselves. So that's my area of interest. And each time I listen to you, I can feel your heartbeat and your passion to see this happen. And I feel that, okay, and connecting with what we are doing, possibly I could get some level of insight on what more to do. Yeah, so that's why I said it might not be.
Thank you so much. Let's just keep brooding on the ideas, and we'll just always activate these things. I mean, there are many channels you can reach me. You can send the book to me. I can talk about the book on the platform, and we'll just keep growing like that. Or you can send soft copies of the book to me, or send me the link online, and we just keep growing with these ideas, all right? And God bless you for it, my brother. I really appreciate you. My brother Dele Farotimi too has a new book out. It's a good book. He gave me a copy of it yesterday, and it's a very powerful book on national development, It has to be said. I just appreciate the great work he's doing, and happy birthday to Father. Father. Yesterday I just had to run back to town to be there. It's Father's birthday celebration. That's Charlie Boy himself. God bless him, and God continue to bless all of you. That's about all we can take. When we come back, we'll play that insightful message on why Africa is poor. It's going to be a great series, and you can get a chance to learn more. And it is well with all of us. Bless you guys. I love you guys so much. I pray as you go this week, you are blessed, you are greatly favored, and you're greatly honored. In Jesus' name, amen.
A radio station is supposed to inform,
recently that people are getting to know about themselves, about their physique, that is women, black women.
educate.
So what you need to do now is go to
The African continent is famous for its poverty, but many people don't know the complete reason why Africa is so poor. While we all have a vague idea such as corruption, colonization or foreign interference, all these reasons ignore why any of these things can happen in the first place. So in this video I seek to change that. In this video we will look from the point when African countries were rich and powerful, how over the centuries Africa lost its wealth, and why Africa hasn't been able to crawl out of its poverty while so many other countries and foreign colonies have. And to do this we need to start in the 14th century, with Eastern Africa connected to the Indian Ocean trade, while West Africa was home to the richest person to have ever lived, a man named Mansa Musa. While many historians throughout history have concluded that Africa barely has any history aside from mummies and pyramids, it is important to remember that for most of history, much of Africa was as well connected to the rest of the world as Europe or Asia. They developed metallurgy that was on par with Europe and Asia, developed complex mathematical theories, and had intricate systems of governments such as city-states, kingdoms and empires. So, what changed? Well, in the 14th and 15th century, Africa's prosperity began to fall behind that of the rest of the world. This was because of two external forces, the Ottoman Empire and the Western European empires. We will start with the Ottoman Empire, because the Ottomans required slaves, and the way they got their slaves was through war. They would go into villages, towns and cities to capture the men, women and children to be sold as slaves back home. And the easiest and cheapest place to get new slaves was Eastern Africa. And so slave traders were able to earn a lot of money by buying or capturing East Africans to sell them to the Ottomans. This trade continued all the way into the 19th century. Something similar was happening with Western European empires. At first, European traders came to Africa to trade salt in exchange for gold and ivory. Later, Europeans sailed around Africa to go to Asia. As a result, West Africa became an important location for European traders to stock up on supplies on their way to and from Asia. Soon after, Europeans tried going to East Asia directly by crossing the Atlantic, but instead they stumbled upon the Americas. In these Americas, the Europeans set up colonies. And these colonies were supposed to have the same system of government as that of Europe, with nobility, barons, clergy, knights and peasants. But those Europeans had a problem. The Native Americans, who were supposed to become the new peasants, were dying from diseases like smallpox, measles, bubonic plague and many more. And a dead peasant is an unproductive peasant. So where were they going to find new peasants for American colonies? Well, they found them on the West African slave markets. At the time, West Africa had slavery, but it wasn't the type of slavery we often think of. A slave often had similar rights as non-slaves. Their children weren't automatically slaves themselves, and they were often part of the family structure rather than a separate worker. And so European traders began buying slaves from West Africa. West Africans were happy to sell European slaves because their own gold mines were drying up in the 15th century and they were looking for a new way to earn money. But how do you get new slaves? Well, you go to war for them. Various African countries went to war with their neighbors, captured their citizens, and then sold those citizens to the Europeans. Prominent slaver countries were the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Bono State, and the Songhai Empire. From the perspective of African rulers, this seemed like a good deal. They were weakening their rivals while earning lots of money in the process. And so over time slavery changed from a relatively small market where slaves had rights into a large system of warfare where slaves became property to be sold to the highest bidder. This evolved into a system where slave traders would go to Africa to buy slaves and put as many as they could fit onto their ships. They would then sail to the Americas, where those slaves were sold to work to death in the fields. Those slave traders then bought raw materials those slaves produced, such as sugarcane, cotton or cocoa, sail to Europe and sell those raw materials for a profit. In Europe, those materials would be turned into manufactured goods like rum, clothing or weapons. The traders then bought those manufactured goods and sailed back to Africa to sell those manufactured goods and use the profits to buy new slaves. This was a good deal for everybody except the slaves. The Americans received slaves to use in the plantations, the Europeans received raw materials, and the West Africans received manufactured goods. And the plight of the slaves was not an issue to any of them. While at times Europeans tried taking slaves by force, this always failed because the African kingdoms were far too strong at the time, and so they maintained friendly relations with whichever country was willing to sell slaves. Over the centuries, empires collapsed into civil wars, and the slave traders were more than willing to buy their former slave partners as slaves to be shipped off to the Americas. And so as empires rose and fell, there were always merchants willing to buy slaves. Such as happened in the Kingdom of Congo, which fell apart into various factions. Each of those factions needed weapons and money to fund their war effort, and so they captured slaves from other parts of the former Kingdom of Congo and sold them to Portuguese traders. As the Europeans founded more and more colonies in the Americas, the more slaves could be sold and the richer the trader became. And this trade had a long-term effect on the economies of Africa, both in West Africa as well as East Africa with the Ottomans. Because before industrialization, the economy of a country was determined by the amount of people living in the country. The more people you had, the larger your economy was. And if you had a large economy, then you could have a small portion of your population focus on producing things other than food. In Europe, for example, craftspeople produced all sorts of things from alcoholic drinks, steel, muskets, cigars, and of course that sweet, sweet, delicious chocolate. But it took centuries for those industries to fully mature. But in Africa, these industries never matured like they did in the rest of the world. Because in Africa, craftspeople were enslaved. And this had a tremendous impact on the African economies. While European, Asian and American industries kept growing and kept improving, Africa's industries stagnated. and soon they could no longer compete with European and Asian imports, and the African industries became small and insignificant because you could buy better and cheaper products from Asian and European markets. But you might be asking yourselves, why did the Africans go along with this? Well, because they had to. When you have several warlike empires surrounding you, you yourself have to invest in a strong military to protect yourself. But if you put more money in the military, it means there is less money for you to spend on your own economy. So if an African leader realized what was going on, they couldn't invest in industries because they had to protect themselves. And so all the way into the 19th century, Africa's economies were slowly declining because the slave trade slowly destroyed the African economies, while making a huge profit for those who captured and sold slaves. But why did Western Europeans and the Ottomans weaken Africa for hundreds of years? Well, because it was convenient for the people in charge at that time. It wasn't some grand plan, but instead, each government, trader, and company saw an opportunity in Africa to earn profit. This profit came at the expense of African long-term wealth, with most of the people involved probably not even realizing this. And when a particular region becomes weaker, there are always the strong who will exploit the weak. And in the 19th century, 3 major events happened that would solidify African poverty. The first was the end of slavery. All of a sudden, African slave traders were losing customers because slavery was becoming illegal across the world. And this was a big problem for African countries because their economies relied on exporting slaves and importing foreign goods. But now they lost their main source of income. And because Africa had not built up any other industries because of the slave trade, it did not have another source of income with which it could trade with the outside world. So Africans could no longer buy many of the goods and tools they relied on, and as a result, the African economies slowly collapsed in the 19th century. The second major event in the 19th century was industrialization. Europeans and Americans started to outproduce the rest of the world. Africa became insignificant in world affairs by the middle of the 19th century. And many of the stereotypes about Africans, such as that they have no history, no established government, and various racist beliefs, came about in this time period, when Africa had become weak with little to offer the outside world, and the outside world taking little interest in Africa. And then the third major event happened in the 1870s. With Africa's economy in shambles and European industrialization in full swing, Europe, all of a sudden, had the ability to transport vast amounts of heavy materials across oceans. Before, it would not be profitable to transport heavy ores from Africa to Europe because the technology simply wasn't available yet to make it profitable. But steam technology meant trains, steamboats, and factories that could transport and produce goods at a profit. And in 1871, the King of Belgium decided that Belgium should have a colony, looked at the world map, and noticed that Africa was both weak and available. And so once again, the strong took advantage of the weak. Soon other European nations joined, and almost all of Africa was colonized by Western and Southern European empires until Africa looked like this, and like this after World War I. And this had 3 significant results for Africa. The first is the increased poverty. European colonizers cared little for the people living in the colony. Africans were driven out of the most fertile regions to make space for European settlers. Plantations were built for Africans to work and for Europeans to own. And the taxes Africans paid were rarely spent on improving their lives, but instead on continuing their own oppression. The European colonizers were only interested in extracting wealth from their colonies by constructing roads, railroads, and ports to transport raw materials to Europe and North America. In essence, whatever wealth Africans had was systematically taken from them and handed over to European settlers. A prominent example is the Congo Free State, where they worked millions of people to their deaths. By the way, if you're curious what the free stands for in the Congo Free State, It meant free of oversight, so the rulers of the colony could exploit the locals without any interference. The second is the infrastructure, which was designed specifically to transport raw materials to their European overlords. The first president of Togo said it quite well. The effects of the policy of the colonial powers has been the economic isolation of peoples who live side by side, in some instances within a few miles of each other. Although I can call Paris from my office telephone here in Lomé, I cannot place a call to Lagos in Nigeria, only 250 miles away. Again, while it takes a short time to send an airmail letter to Paris, it takes several days for the same letter to reach Accra, a mere 132 miles away. Railroads rarely connect at international boundaries. Roads have been constructed from the coast inland, but very few join economic centers of trade. The productive central regions of Togo, Benin and Ghana are as remote from each other as if they were on separate continents. And the third result was that by replacing all the African leaders with European leaders, that Africa was losing vital skills in terms of governing themselves, such as business managers, government leaders, or accountants, as well as practical skills such as mechanics, construction workers, or medical professionals. And that was a problem when Africans started demanding their independence after World War II, when protests, riots, and rebellions popped up across the continent, until the colonizers realized that a few million Europeans simply couldn't control over 200 million Africans if those Africans refused to cooperate. And so between 1945 and 1975, almost every African country became independent. At the time it was thought that if Africans would once again rule Africa, that wealth would follow soon. But this didn't happen. But why not? History has shown us that former colonies can become wealthy countries, such as New Zealand, Ireland or South Korea. Yet not a single country in Africa is what we call a developed country. And the reason for this is the way in which the colonizers left Africa. Because when people don't have the skills to run a country, when communities don't connect to each other, and when prosperity is already rare, it becomes very difficult for the leaders of that country to bring prosperity to that country. But at the same time, leaders of African independence movements promised the African people prosperity after independence. So, how were African leaders going to fulfill this promise of wealth and prosperity? Well, for most African countries, the solution was an economic system called African socialism. The way this system works is that many industries would be controlled by the national government, such as mining, construction, plantations, etc. It would then use all of the nation's resources to industrialize, because at the time manufacturing jobs paid higher salaries than farming jobs, and so decided that the best way for Africa to become rich was to replace low-paying jobs in agriculture and mining with high-paying jobs in factories. It made foreign goods more expensive by putting extra taxes on those goods, arguing that if foreign products are more expensive, then people will need to buy goods from their own country instead. The leaders were hoping that foreign investors would come to their countries because those foreign businesses wouldn't have to pay those extra taxes if they just moved some of their factories to Africa. And, luckily for Africa at the time, they gained independence during a Cold War, and so they could receive foreign aid from either the West or the Soviet Union in exchange for being on their side in the Cold War. And while of course every African country had different economic policies, they were all kind of similar to this. But African socialism simply didn't work. First of all, the trade restrictions meant that African countries couldn't sell products to each other, meaning that it was hard to find customers to buy any products made in Africa. As a result, none of the industries could grow large enough to be able to compete with the industries of North America, Europe, or East Asia. And so nobody else wanted to buy African goods because they could get those same goods better and cheaper from other countries. Secondly, A single large government isn't able to adapt to changes in world markets as quickly as hundreds of smaller businesses, meaning that centrally planned economies will always be less efficient than economies which have a lot of different businesses competing with each other. Thirdly, Africans simply lack the skills and education required to work in manufacturing jobs in the first place, meaning that they were far less efficient than their better educated counterparts in the rest of the world. For example, out of the 200 million black Africans in the 1950s, only 8,000 received secondary education, 200 a university education, and 1/3 of the student-age population went to primary school. So it would take decades before enough qualified professionals would join the job market. And so African countries lacked the people needed to make their countries thrive. The fourth reason why it didn't work is not so much about African socialism itself, but about the continent of Africa. Because Africa's landscape is harsh, with some places experiencing droughts lasting years, such as the drought which lasted from 1968 to 73, causing large food shortages, while other parts have locusts and red-billed koala birds which make agriculture nearly impossible. The fifth reason was disease. Yellow fever, smallpox, sleeping sickness and malaria are but a few of the diseases which plagued African development. And while smallpox was being eradicated, new diseases were spreading, such as river blindness, where worms live inside your eyes and have become the second largest cause of blindness worldwide. Or take bilharzia, caused by a worm which likes to live in rivers. It infects the urinary tract or intestines, which can lead to kidney failure, infertility, and in children can cause poor growth and learning disabilities. All of these diseases are easily preventable in rich countries with access to water sanitation facilities and modern medicine. But because Africans were poor, they couldn't afford the doctors, clinics and medicine they needed to fight those diseases. And so a combination of trade barriers, inefficient governments, a lack of education, harsh environments and disease meant that this system was doomed to fail from the beginning. There was simply no way for any African nation to reach wealth and prosperity at that time because of the underdeveloped countries they inherited from their former colonizers. But this raises a new question. Why did African countries choose this system in the first place? Well, the reason is that this was a system which they inherited from their former colonizers, where the colonial government controlled nearly every aspect of the colony's economy. And if they wanted to switch to a free market system like Western Europe, East Asia or North America, then they would need business people and entrepreneurs to set up new businesses. But the problem with this is that Africans weren't allowed to run businesses under colonialism, so the entrepreneurial attitude didn't exist. On top of that, due to colonialism, Africans were never trained in modern skills. So if you wanted to open a factory, for example, it would be impossible to find qualified employees who knew how to run the machines and factories. In today's world, we know the answer to this dilemma because we've seen countries like Singapore, Vietnam and China in similar predicaments. But back in the 1940s through 70s, there were no such examples to follow, except for countries like Japan and the USSR, who had gained economic development through strict government control. And so Africa's leaders thought that African socialism was the best way to create wealth and prosperity for their countries. Except those two countries did so through the deaths of millions and already had an educated population when they began their economic development projects. Let's compare this to a colony which did become wealthy after independence, South Korea. They decided to focus on just a few industries such as electronics, agriculture and steel, and only putting trade barriers on those products. South Korea would then trade those products with things it didn't produce itself. As a result, South Korea became a world leader in things like electronics and has become one of the richest countries in the world. But this only explains why Africa didn't become wealthy right after independence. However, after a few decades, Africans would have better education and would be able to indeed set up African businesses using African labor to create African industry. Yet this didn't happen until the 21st century. So why didn't this happen earlier? Well, this has a lot to do with the corruption that emerged after independence. Shortly before independence, most African colonies became democratic, and these democracies were very unstable because they had only been around for a few years in most cases. We still see this today, where recent democracies tend to be the least stable democracies. And most African nations were not at all united. Some countries were lucky in that most people spoke the same language, while other countries had hundreds of different languages, and good luck trying to run a political campaign in over 100 languages. So instead, politicians realized that they could more easily win votes if they targeted specific ethnic groups. As a result, politics was divided along ethnic lines, and African countries became more and more divided with each election in the 1960s and 70s. So now groups of people were not only divided based on ethnicity, but also separated politically based on where they were born. From the perspective of a politician, this made perfect sense. If you want to win votes, appeal to certain ethnic groups. But from the perspective of the country as a whole, it made the country more difficult to govern over time. And if a candidate decided to appeal to the whole country instead of specific ethnic groups, then they would lose elections. And so, through a natural process, African nations tended to become more divided after independence, all thanks to the social and political systems left behind by their former colonizers. A prominent example of where this went horribly wrong was Rwanda, with the Rwandan genocide, where over 500,000 members of the Tutsi ethnic group were massacred along with many other crimes against humanity. Once a party got into power, they would try to keep the power for themselves. Many Africans saw democracy as nothing more than a mess of infighting, with opposition parties abusing their power to hinder the greater national interest. Therefore, a single-party system was created in many African nations in the years following independence by crushing the opposition. And in countries with hundreds of different cultures and languages, it makes sense that you wouldn't want to deal with all of them vying for power. By the 1980s, the elites had taken full control over the political system in most African countries. And so, very little changed after independence, with European elites replaced with African elites. And those new elites were concerned that they would be overthrown in a coup. So, how were they going to keep themselves in power? Well, by taking the money intended for economic development and handing them out as salaries to powerful government officials to keep them happy enough that they wouldn't start a rebellion. But whereas colonies had oversight from their European government, who would fire anyone getting too corrupt, the new leaders had no such oversight. And to show just how incompetent some of these governments are, in the Central African Republic, the government didn't even keep proper records of financial transactions. By 1964, Senegal spent 47% of the government budget on the elites, 58% in Ivory Coast, and 65% in Dahomey, now called Benin. And if outsiders wanted access to African resources, all they had to do was bribe government officials to get access. And so African governments and companies started paying money to the African elites to gain access to the resources rich nations needed to run their own economies. As a result, the elites became richer, while the poor became even poorer. So, if you're an oil company, all you have to do is bribe government officials and you can extract all the oil that you want. The elites would get a portion of the profits, while the people would see no benefits from resources taken from their own country. This is a system which is still active in many parts of Africa to this day. And if you're a country or company who does not want to give money to corrupt politicians, then there will always be somebody else who is willing to pay. As a result, anyone who thinks morality is more important than those resources will always be outcompeted by the ones who are willing to pay the bribe. Thus you create a system where world leaders who are willing to pay those bribes will always have an advantage over those who won't pay bribes. and over time, bribes had become the norm in Africa. The Africans were not stupid, of course, and saw what was happening. They would often protest or even start rebellions to stop their own exploitation. But in the 1960s, African countries did not have a strong enough military to keep the peace. So, who did they call upon to restore order? Well, their former colonizers. The French and British in particular suppressed rebellions and protests across Africa in exchange for greater access to African resources. For example, in 1962, French troops broke up fighting in what is now called the Republic of Congo and put down a rebellion in Cameroon. The British meanwhile suppressed mutinies in Kenya and Tanzania. By 1965, these military interventions became common across Africa. From Algeria to Congo, Benin, the Central African Republic, Upper Volta, Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, all independent countries, and all had European troops stationed there to secure European access to African resources. African nations experienced around 40 successful coups within the first 2 decades after independence, and so Africa gained a reputation for being a very unstable country. So unstable in fact that almost nobody wanted to invest in Africa anymore except for their resources. And this highlights another issue. People think of Africa as a single entity, a continent filled with poverty and war. So when someone hears about, for example, Boko Haram in Nigeria, it is often grouped with the rest of Africa as just being another war in a continent filled with war. Yet what most people don't realize is that the area in which they operate is over 1,000 kilometers away from Nigeria's economic centers and has almost no effect on business. They are further away than Amsterdam is from Warsaw. But companies will still refuse to do business in Africa because of this belief. And this creates a cycle. People group Africa together as a poor continent, resulting in less business, which results in Africa staying in poverty. It is for this reason that throughout this video I have used the words most, almost all or few quite a lot to show that Africa is a diverse area and simply cannot be grouped together in most cases due to this diversity in peoples, landscapes and cultures. Despite all these issues, some things did improve in Africa. By the 1980s, African politics started to stabilize with fewer coups. Primary school enrollment went from 36% to 63%, secondary school from 3% to 13%, life expectancy rose from 39 to 47, and the medical professionals per person doubled. On the whole though, the average African was becoming poorer. However, Africans were receiving better healthcare and education, and this would be very important for Africa by the 1980s. Because in the 1980s, Africa faced 3 major issues. The first was that the infrastructure it did have started to break down, meaning that raw materials became far more difficult to export. The second was that Africans who did receive a proper education decided to move to another country where they would receive a better salary, meaning that Africa was losing its smartest and best educated people. And the third was the fall of the Soviet Union. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union decided to stop participating in the Cold War and focus on its own economy. As a result, it was no longer sending as much money to African allies. In turn, Western countries decided that they were also going to send less money to Africa. So all of a sudden, African leaders no longer had enough money to keep themselves in power with the system of bribes. And so African leaders decided to ask Western nations for financial aid. But this time, those Western nations were no longer interested in giving money directly. Instead, African nations would have to sign loans with rich countries, and in exchange, African countries would have to reform their economies in such a way that it would become easier for companies to do business in those countries. And while various industries were privatized and free markets emerged, most African countries underwent few reforms. And the reason they underwent so few reforms is that African dictators had an idea. they could pretend to privatize their economy by selling the privatization to the highest bidder. Basically, doing what they had been doing for the past couple of decades. Bribes in exchange for access to African markets. So in effect, nothing changed. Except that this time Western institutions supported this process by rewarding those dictators through foreign aid packages, making bribes even more profitable. In Nigeria, for example, the government privatized various state-owned businesses, of which 80% of the shares were owned by the leaders of the country. In effect, not changing anything at all. In Kenya, Uganda, Zaire, Guinea and Senegal, they sold government businesses to the friends and family of government leaders. The only businesses which actually saw significant investments were oil and mineral extraction, which, just like in the 60s and 70s, had been sold off to the highest bidder by bribing government officials. As a result, the 1980s is often dubbed Africa's lost decade, and why Africa remained poor until 1989. Because protests were erupting all over the world. The Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, Taiwan, South Korea, China, and Africa. Africans were once again protesting their own oppression. And so rich countries decided to switch tactics. Instead of giving money to dictators for fake privatization, they instead gave money to countries who reformed their government to be more democratic. And so dictatorships faced two issues at once. On the one hand, their own people were getting restless, while on the other hand, their income was decreasing. And so the elites allowed for a small amount of reform, enough to appease the people and the rich countries, but not enough that they would be removed from power. Democratization spread across Africa, to Zaire, Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, Gabon, Cameroon, Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, South Africa, until it spread across the continent. With of course various exceptions. While some governments resisted, such as for example the Central African Republic, most did democratize at least slightly. Each country had their own struggles of course, but in general the continent made slow but steady progress towards democracy. Even today we still see this progress in action in Africa, as elections are often contested and often unfair. Yet it is more democratic than a complete dictatorship. And this process has made Africa more stable and more open for doing business in the early 90s. And now new leaders were in charge of Africa, and these leaders had to fight corruption in order to fight poverty. And by fighting poverty, they could stay in power, as this would earn them votes in future elections. They reduced the government's role in the economy, encouraged growth in the private sector, allowed Africans who were much better educated than in the 1960s to use their skills to develop their country, and attracted investors from abroad. These policies primarily focused on using the strength of Africans themselves, rather than by having policies enforced upon them by the outside world. The African Renaissance can only succeed if its aims and objectives are defined by Africans themselves, if its programs are designed by Africans ourselves, and if we take responsibility for the success or failure of our policies. African countries started to work together more through institutions like the African Union, by reducing trade barriers to make trade between African countries easier, investing in stable governments to make sure that you didn't have to worry about a civil war right across your border, and by creating various agencies to cultivate African talents. And these trends have had an effect in the last 3 decades, with some African countries now being the fastest growing economies in the world. And so we arrive in the 21st century, where history is too recent to make any real historical analyses. However, there are some trends worth noting. Africa is still facing many issues. They are the least prepared for climate change, while probably suffering the most under it. 1/3 of all children are malnourished. 1/3 of children don't finish high school. Extremists find it easy to recruit the vast amounts of poor unemployed young people. Pandemics are common across the continent, with COVID being just one among many. and the economic development of Africa is limited to certain countries. African countries are looking at the economic successes of East Asian countries and are adapting those policies for their own countries. This is resulting in factories, agricultural centers, and tech centers being opened across many African nations. For example, they are able to use the fact that Africa and Europe have the same time zones and take over various administrative jobs from European-based companies for a lower price. A new generation of Africans is entering the job markets that are better educated and better skilled than any African generation that came before. With these hardworking and talented people, African governments have created economic policies to harness the talents of Africans by letting them set up their own businesses in a free market which generates wealth by Africans, for Africans, in Africa. For example, take the hyacinth plant, an invasive species on Lake Victoria. African scientists developed a method of turning this invasive species into protein-rich animal feed. This feed is now being sold across the world. In the 21st century, developments like these are creating a fast-growing middle class with rising spending power. This middle class will want to buy things with that extra money, and this will allow Africa to sell more goods to other Africans, which in turn allows Africans to create industries specifically suited for the African market, a market often neglected by rich countries. And while Africa is still in the position where it mostly exports raw materials, it is currently experiencing an economic development that, if it continues, will finally bring an end to the large-scale poverty that has systematically plagued Africa for centuries. Africans are not just hopeful of the future, but, for the first time since colonization, are actually gaining the tools that will create this future. And yet, despite all the information in this video, there is a lot which I had to leave out, such as for example the disastrous agricultural programs which cause famines in areas with some of the most fertile land in the world, economic successes which eventually failed due to corruption, or the French financial systems linking African currencies to France. I therefore left articles and YouTube videos in the description with more information about Africa, in particular, information written by Africans themselves. If you're from Africa or are an expert on Africa, then please share more information about this topic in the comments. I will heart react ones that provide more information, so